All right, so this is going to be what is, I believe, the fourth installment of our ongoing series in the Grip of ThermostatAnon, which title refers to the original title of this particular video here, and this long series of acronymic expression, which is I'm not going to decode it all, but the original title of that series was In the Grip of Q-MAGAnon. And the claim that YouTube made before they removed the video, which I now don't have access to, so I can no longer even appeal. In order to appeal, you have to cite the video, and the video doesn't exist on YouTube. So I appealed once, and their thermostatic AI spent 4 minutes reviewing this rather long video, and I don't know how they skimmed, but determined that that they were initially correct to remove the video, and the excuse is presented right here. We think your content didn't follow our policy on harmful conspiracy theories, when in fact the entire video is about harmful conspiracy theories, particularly those leading to January 6th, and creates a fictional and cartoon-like narrative around those events, in which, and we've discussed this already, the Guardians of the Galaxy are looking for a 21st century hero to protect the future of the universe, the security of democracy into the 31st century. And initially they think that perhaps Mike Pence can fulfill that role, because he was the individual who came under so much assault and attempted harm, right? The Q-MAGAnons wanted to hang him. I don't think there's any question about that. Saying that is certainly not a conspiracy theory. We can document that. And but Pence was unable to, among other things, unable to find the courage to invoke the 25th Amendment and remove Donald Trump from office based on his actions and his violations of the Constitution of the United States. So they chose another, and I won't reveal who that is. That's part of the plot of our slideshow. But I'll take us up to the point where we're going to read the next. I've been reading the memes, meme by meme, and spending some time elaborating upon their meaning. I guess if one wanted to make a silly pun, one could say memeing, but that's my way of reintroducing the content of the video to my viewers, while simultaneously defending it against this what I refer to as Orwellian judgment, the sort of doublespeak judgment. If you criticize us, if you criticize fascism, you're the fascist. But this is very much like the way stuff gets censored here in the United States. Like it's not the actual glorification and promulgation of conspiracy theories that produce acts of violence that get removed from YouTube. It's those that criticize them under, right, like this false claim. So anyway, that's where we are. I'll close this out, and if I can, there we go. And we'll go ahead and play. I'll play the video up to the meme that we're reading today, and as I said, I'm reading these memes at various levels, close, distant, mid-range, I guess, if there is such a thing. Let's go ahead and. All right, so that's where we are, and this will be the image or meme that we're reading today. So just to say something about the eyes to begin with. So in this narrative, the MAGA madness, or perhaps it's Q-MAGAnon madness, results, and I imagine it as a kind of virus or spreading disease, and and that disease has various consequences and various effects upon the individuals subject to it and influenced by it, and some of those effects include increased aggressive behavior, lack of the ability to think rationally, the acceptance of extraordinarily offensive behavior, increased aggression and reduced ability to self-censor and control one's actions, in addition to in the late stages frothing at the mouth and the development of this this peculiar fish eye that we see in this figure, who I believe this is Michael Flynn, and so I'll say something about Michael Flynn. Well, that explains the eyes, and it's part of, I think it's phase or level, or stage. It's probably stage 7 of the MAGA madness, in which you develop this eye, and in this one, I guess to make it additionally funny, like I put the eyes in the back of the head, and then the little area here in the band that keeps the baseball cap on, that little gray area that you can see of the gentleman's hair, looks like it's forming a frowning mouth. I mean, you can probably see that for yourself. I don't really need to explain that. But this is Michael Flynn, and well, we can say something about Michael Flynn, I suppose. And he's obviously represented in this particular image as being in stage 7, or perhaps it's stage 5, but I think it's stage 7 of the MAGA madness, or perhaps it was the Q-MAGAnon madness, and we'll reveal that as it goes along, and I can recall better. This is another one who has the MAGA madness, but Michael Flynn, you'll recall, was involved in all this intrigue and backroom deal making with Russia and with Turkey as well, I believe, and got in quite a bit of trouble for I believe he was placed in Trump's cabinet in 2016 as the security advisor, national security advisor, and had been dealing with Russia and a few other countries. Iran, I think. I'm not sure. I'm probably wrong about that. You can look up Michael Flynn online and you can find all of the details. But a lot of activity and a lot of money changed hands that shouldn't have, and of course, Flynn is famous for, these rallies in which he would inspire the crowd to chant, lock her up, in relationship to Ms. Clinton, and of course, it's precisely, and ironically, Michael Flynn, who was the one who deserved to be locked up, because he really had been dealing as almost like an agent operative for some of these countries who are not particularly known to be our allies, right? So all of these deals with Putin, and he's often pictured in pictures, in images with Putin, having dinner and sitting at the side of Putin. And like I said, you can look it all up and just look up Michael Flynn, and and of course, you know, like he became more famous because, in spite of the fact that, you know, Trump assigned him to this position as, you know, security advisor as early as 2016. Then when it came up, like, that he was doing all this stuff, Trump, who's pictured over here, you know, enwreathed in the QAnon wreath, right? And then there's the, this is jumping the gun a little bit, but there's the noose, right, that the QAnons, you know, wanted to utilize to hang Mike Pence. So it's right there in the image. Now, you know, of course I doctored, you know, Trump's head into this image. Trump isn't there. Of course, I doctored, you know, Michael Flynn into this image. Michael Flynn wasn't there. That's poetic and artistic license in the creation of this particular fiction. Also, Michael Flynn doesn't really have the fisheye that is stage 7 manifestation of the MAGA madness. In fact, none of these participants in the crowd, the rest of these figures in the crowd, I believe, were just people there. But this guy, he doesn't really have fish eyes growing out of the back of his head. Do I need to tell people that so that I don't appear to be a conspiracy theorist? You know, I created this conspiracy theory that the Maganons grow fish eyes, and it's political satire, right? And anyway, all right. So we're talking about Michael Flynn. Anyway, Trump claimed that he didn't really know anything about this guy, and but also pressured James Comey, right, in that famous meeting, and said that Michael Flynn's a really good guy. Well, I don't know where you would get that idea if you've ever paid any attention to him, either in, you know, the way that he presents himself and the machinery of his toxicity, but or you know, in evaluating his actions in relationship to what I would call, right, you know, conspiracy against the United States and the actions of a traitor, right, to his country. But in any case, all of that money changed hands, and Trump, you know, claimed both not to know anything about it, but insisted upon what a good guy Michael Flynn was, right, and basically asked, you know, James Comey, who was the individual, you know, in charge of the investigation, that let me see if I can find that online quickly, because we've been kind of documenting stuff, and there's James Comey right here. I knew that his face was coming up, and I put him in. I want to see if that little passage with regarding Comey is available in here. Post-military career, etc., etc., etc. Oh, there he is with Putin. You see, there's Putin here. He's a little blurry. Putin's a little blurry there. And then over here, he's hiding. He's hiding behind this big-headed guy. This is a real guy with a really big head. But that's Michael Flynn right there. That's 2015. That's before. That's before Donald Trump was elected. And in fact, you know, if you call it being elected, because the popular vote did go to Ms. Clinton, didn't it? But because we have the Electoral College rigged in favor of Republicans, you don't really have to win the popular vote in the United States as long as you win a big enough chunk of the overvalued vote, right? The Electoral College goes to you, and that happens in the case of Republicans only. I don't think that the Democratic Party, not least in the last 2 centuries, has ever, well, I don't think ever won an election based on electoral votes rather than popular votes. Ta-da-ta-da. I'm trying to find Comey. Okay, wait a minute. I think I missed it. Go Go back. Well, here's some interesting information. So, okay, on November 18th, 2016, Flynn accepted the position. Okay, that's pretty much what I said. National Security Advisor. Yes, we're correct about that. Okay, during their meeting in the Oval Office 2 days after the election, President Barack Obama expressed profound concerns about placing Flynn in a sensitive high-level national security post and warned President-elect Trump against hiring Flynn. So that was as early as, November 19th, 2016, and Trump had been warned, and Obama had a little bit more information, having been the President of the United States, than perhaps Donald Trump had, or Trump was aware of it and didn't care. On January 4, 2017, Flynn informed Transition Team Counsel Don McGraham, soon to become the White House counsel, that he was under federal litigation for secret lobbying work. So he was lobbying for Turkey. We had mentioned Turkey during the campaign. Trump later questioned in May 2019 why he had not been told Flynn was under investigation, so he could have removed Flynn from his team. But he was. So he was warned. But that's a typical Trump move, pretend like something different happened. I'm really looking for that meeting that James Comey had with Trump, in which Trump told him to drop the investigation of Michael Flynn. I think it's right here. So this is the FBI Director James Comey. In January 2017, then FBI Director James Comey decided to send FBI agents to interview Flynn, knowing that Flynn had asked Kislyak to ensure Russia did not respond harshly to U.S. sanctions, and also that Vice President Pence, Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, I can't remember how to pronounce his first name, and Press Secretary Sean Spicer had all said Flynn told them he had not made such a request. Comey decided that Flynn it's hard to read this off of this, I might have to read it. I'll just back a little bit, and then I'm going to read it from the screen directly because I'm having a hard time following it. Decided that Flynn needed to be interviewed as part of assessing whether FBI was acting under Russian influence. The FBI discussed how to structure the interview, and then Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe called Flynn on January 24th, asking him to meet with 2 FBI counterintelligence agents. McCabe also asked if Flynn wanted a lawyer present, to which Flynn said no. Let me see. Still can't find the... Oh, here it is. Okay, I finally found it. Oh, wow. It was on Valentine's Day, of all things. Excuse the cough. I apologized in another video. I have some kind of cold or virus. On February 14th, 2017, President Trump met with FBI Director James Comey in the Oval Office and reportedly told him, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting Flynn go," adding, "he's a good guy." So that's what I was looking for. FBI Director Comey subsequently testified that I had understood the president to be requesting that we drop any investigation of Flynn in connection with false statements he made in conversations with the Russian ambassador in December. I did not understand the president to be talking about the border investigation in Russia or possible links to his campaign. The propriety and even the legality of these words that Trump reportedly said to Comey about Flynn have become a subject of considerable public debate. And, at this point, and this is early on in Trump's presidency, right? This is February, right? How long has he been acting president? Like a month and a half, right? That's pretty bad. And these actions are at least, right? At least as treacherous as anything that Richard Nixon did in his spying on the Democratic campaign, and at least as outside the law and Constitution as anything. And a month into his presidency, and he should have been removed, right? But like and this was, why even when I was shocked that the United States elected this terrible individual to be president, but I wasn't concerned, because I thought, well, he can't control his actions. I knew what kind of a character Trump was. I knew like what a grifter and criminal, person that he has always been. And I just assumed that a month or two into his presidency, it would be revealed that he had committed some crime that he would be impeached for, prosecuted, and put in jail for. So I was unconcerned. What I didn't realize is that he could get away with anything, and the Republican Party was willing to dismiss and lie about everything in relationship to this awful man, and that he would get away with all of this stuff. And that's the conspiracy right there, not pointing it out in the video. Anyway, we did find it. That's kind of took a while, but Tucker Carlson will be pleased that we have documentation of our claims. Let's go back to the video and talk about some of the elements in it. So the QAnon wreath is not my invention. That was part of January 6th, that someone was wearing this, I guess, and or if this is January 6th, and I'm not even sure that I remember now. This may just be some weirdo QAnon rally pre-January 6th. I don't want this to be taken as evidence that this guy here in stage 7 of the QAnon madness should, the FBI shouldn't use this political satire meme as evidence in determining like who should be arrested for January 6th, because I'm not even sure this is the January 6th rally. So just like as a disclaimer, so that I don't produce conspiracy theories and misinformation. So if there's anybody from the FBI, James Comey's former division, or the CIA out there watching the video, I just want to disclaim, like, just because this guy appears in this video with this fisheye doesn't mean that he was necessarily, he might have been, and this young lady back here might have been part of the January 6th insurrection and conspiracy to overturn the legitimate results of a democratic election in the United States, but not necessarily, because I'm not sure about that. But this definitely is, even if it's not. Now, is this actually an image of Michael Flynn, or is this an actor that I paid to look like Michael Flynn and wear the fake fisheye? And if you look at his arms, he doesn't look old enough to be an actual Michael Flynn. So I'm not sure. It's either that or I just cut and pasted an actual image of Michael Flynn's face. But I'm not even sure that the cut and paste is actually Michael Flynn. It could be someone who looked enough like Michael Flynn to cut and paste into the image, and that I would assume that people took it as Michael Flynn, or perhaps a certain ambiguity about whether Michael Flynn really showed up at this rally or not. And I think what we can say with all clarity is that I'm trying to make a representation of Michael Flynn here in whatever rally this is, and I'm kind of hinting that this was either the precursor to January 6th or the spillover, perhaps parking lot spillover of the January 6th insurrection. And certainly, like, the idea for hanging Mike Pence is already there, or maybe they had this symbol, you know, I don't really know that much about it. I've never been an active member in the QAnon movement, and so I don't know all the details and all of the iconography as well as perhaps I should, you know, and but this is either like already a reference to the Hang Mike Pence thing, or that's part of their iconography. I don't know, but it you know, seeing it, you know, when I found the image, right, you know, inspired me to place it, you know, within that context of that day in which a hanging scaffold and a noose was placed out for Mike Pence, because I wanted to emphasize that and the violence of that, and here, you know, that violence is satirized and made, you know, it's turned into something funny, you know, with the eyes, but the eyes, you know, still represent a level of madness and the spread of this, you know, malignant virus that had, you know, certainly, you know, far from funny, you know, consequences. And there's Trump making one of his dumb faces, and I don't think it's you know, slanderous to say that that's a dumb face. I think that's just objectively a dumb face. It you know, slander would be if I said, let's see, what can we say that's slanderous? I don't know that one could really say anything slanderous about Trump that he hasn't actually committed, or that doesn't belong to his character. I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything that I would say that isn't true. But anyway, that, it seems to me, is an objectively dumb face, and then just the layout here, like whose ever head, you know, was there before I replaced it with Trump's head. Well, you get the idea. I don't know that we would actually call this, you know, sophisticated. This guy, his haircut's kind of sophisticated, but and that suit, you know, he looks out of place to me. But then you see that he does have the cartoon sad face, you know, fisheye MAGA madness stage 7. They're all wearing their some of the stuff just hardly needs to be read and pointed out at all. They're all wearing their Make America Great hats, and they'll have their Trump t-shirts on, and they're all ready for they're with their little nooses. They're all ready for January 6th. Is that all we need to say about Michael Flynn and his involvement in all of this stuff, and his real early examples in the MAGA movement of Michael Flynn and his relationship to what I've been referring to as stochastic terrorism, that is, like, inciting violence, and particularly this one was responsible for a lot of the incitations of violence against Ms. Clinton and the whole, you know, lock her up chant that became so popular with these crowds. And you know, he was never prosecuted, you know, for that either, and got off relatively easily. Let's do the next image, because I'm only I don't know why this image didn't like take that long to read. I'm only a half an hour or so into the video. Let's go back and play from the beginning, and I'll see if I can address the next image. If not, we'll move on tomorrow. So I'm gonna go ahead and start up again from the beginning. There's the Trump peas. There's QAnon. All right. All right. So does anybody out there remember who this guy is? Probably not. And I believe the reason for that is I believe this is Christopher Miller, and he was the acting Secretary of Defense for Donald Trump from, this is pretty funny, from November, right? November of 2020 to the end of, or maybe not even till the end. Maybe he was replaced with someone else, but you know, toward the end of his Trump's term in office, single term in office, and following, right, following Trump's loss of the election on November 3rd. So this guy didn't actually even attain that position. That's like Christopher Miller didn't even attain that position until you know, after, you know, Trump had already lost the election, and hence like why we don't remember him. Isn't there an essay by Steve McCaffrey, the Canadian poet from the Four Horsemen? You know, in which the title of that essay is the question, who remembers Bobby Sands? Well, who remembers, you know, Christopher Miller? And why? Because Trump's cabinet was constantly being, you know, replaced. He always chose individuals, you know, at the bottom of the barrel, scraped out the scum from the bottom of the barrel to put in his administration, and fill these, you know, empty places, because people were always leaving because yeah. All right, so the acronym VOA, you know, can refer to a number of things. I was thinking Voice of America, but excuse me, but when you use the acronym VOA, are you referring to our Führer's anarchist enemies in the Volunteers Airlines? I don't know, it should be perhaps anarchist enemies in the Volunteer Airlines. I'm not sure. And I think part of that is supposed to be a reference to Volunteers of America, which also Volunteers of America is the other acronym that it refers to. It's a Jefferson Airplane song, but Volunteers of America actually, you know, does have a meaning. We can look that up if we want to. And Voice of America also, you know, of course, you know, has a meaning as well. We'll probably look up both of those. And let's look up Christopher Miller. Am I getting his name right even? Let's read the whole quotation first, and then we'll look up Christopher Miller. But I believe this was the Secretary of Defense, or the interim Secretary of the Defense, you know, that took on that position sometime in November after Trump's loss of the election on the 3rd. Those are the dogs in the background doing their doggy thing. I'll probably stop this and address some of those doggy things. But first, let's go ahead and read the quote. Excuse me, but when you use the acronym VOA, are you referring to our Führer, that's a reference to Donald Trump and his fascism, Führer's anarchist enemies, and anarchist, not anti-fascist, anarchist enemies in the Volunteers Airlines, or our Führer's deep state enemies in the Voice of Lügenpresse? Of course, Lügenpresse is the lying press, or fake news, right? It's that's the term that the Nazis used to refer to the press, the lying press. Because just like Donald Trump, like, it's important that the Nazis discredited, right, the press that, you know, exposed the Nazis and their violence and their propaganda machine. And this is precisely the same reason that the Nazis, you know, in Germany in the 30s attacked the press is precisely, the reason that the MAGA movement attacks the press with this expression fake news and all of that. And I'm going to prosecute your media and take away your license to take away your license to conduct business as an example of news. And it's very familiar, and the familiarity I imagined would come across. So Volunteers of America and Voice of America could look up all of those things. But the dogs seem to have desisted. Lori's taking care of them, and so I think we can move on and not worry about the dogs. Let's see. I'm gonna look up Christopher Miller. Who remembers Christopher Miller? Do I even have the right name? Okay, well, maybe not. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. There he is. Is that the same guy? Doesn't look the same. Maybe this guy's an imposter, or maybe this guy's an imposter. I don't know. Let's do the. Let's look at it and see if I have the right name. I'm sure I do. Early in 2020, he performed the duties of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict. And then let's see. Am I wrong about his appointment in November? Could be. Oh no, I'm right. Okay, so Mr. Christopher C. Miller served as the acting Secretary of Defense from November 9th, right? That's 6 days after Trump was defeated in the elections. Although you recall how long it took, like, the results of that election, because everything was being contested and the MAGA movement and everything. So from November 9th until January 20th. So yeah, the end of Trump's administration. So that's a period of what? November, December, January, slightly less than 3 months. He performed this role as acting Secretary of Defense. Let's see if we can find any more information about him. Here's another one. Okay, here's Christopher Miller. All right, so at least I had the name right, and some information about him. One of the nice things about being censored is you really get to explain a lot about your video. Christopher Miller had some early missteps after being named Trump's acting Secretary of Defense in November 2020. Yes, literally. First, he tripped on his way up well, that's kind of trivial, but tripped on his way up the stairs into the Pentagon, and then he got up to give his first public speech in the U.S. Army's National Museum. 2 days later, he forgot his prepared remarks. So he's kind of incompetent guy. But that's not the worst thing you could be, I suppose. It set the tone for perhaps the wildest 2-month tour that any Pentagon chief has ever had. Trump moved Miller from the National Counterterrorism Center to take over for Esper as acting Secretary of Defense. Trump announced via tweet that Esper had been fired, like he fired everybody, right? Like that's his big thing. And then he acts like it's not his fault that he hired all these nincompoops to begin with, right? Less than 48 hours after the networks began calling the presidential election for Biden. So he didn't want the last guy. That's the important thing to know. And when he says these things about how he's going to use the military and the national defense against his enemies, like this is the example right here. And people say, oh, he won't really do that. That's all just talk. Even before the election was called, he already got rid of the old guy and got this guy, this sycophantic, follower, right? Because why? Because he wanted to be able to use him for precisely like all of this stuff that he claims that he is going to do, right? And all of these persecutions of his enemies. This guy Trump is no more or less a paranoid persecutor than Stalin or Ivan the Terrible. Let's just put it that way. Miller, a former Green Beret, was given an ambitious lame duck agenda for the Pentagon ahead of Biden's inauguration. The Pentagon was tasked with withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan, something that later, of course, the Republicans complained about in in Biden's administration, right? Like the outcry. He never should have taken our troops out of Afghanistan. And then even Trump's recent visit, to Arlington, and his violation of the sanctity of the National Veterans, Cemetery, like was making these claims about how this particular action that he had already, right, initiated in the course of the closing of his administration was something that Biden should never have done. And anyway, you get the idea. Miller faced widespread criticism for his failure to approve the Department of National Guard to contain the January 6, 2021 pro-Trump insurrection. So was that incompetence, and because this guy, trips down the stairs and forgets his papers, or was it something that he was told to do, right? He received his position on November 9th, and he utterly failed to approve the deployment of the National Guard to contain the January 6th insurrection in 2021, right? So just, process that. Miller faced widespread criticism for his failure to approve the deployment of the National Guard to contain the January 6, 2021 pro-Trump insurrection at the U.S. Capitol for more than 3 hours after the Pentagon became aware of the breach. So the aware of it took 3 hours before. Miller said later that he feared creating the greatest constitutional crisis since the Civil War by deploying active duty U.S. troops. So that's the excuse. He also said that Trump deserves blame for stoking the riot. So even this guy, right, who was basically one of Trump's the way that Richard Nixon replaced Agnew with Ford. So once he lost the election, Trump started, stacking his cabinet with all these little Ford bobbleheads, and this was one of the Ford bobbleheads. But even this, Gerald Ford bobblehead style Secretary of the Defense, or acting, or interim, or whatever, and very late. Even this one said that that Trump deserves blame for stoking the riots. Oh, but this is always the way it is. It's just like Mitch McConnell, calls him stupid and despicable, but still willing to work with him. But he hasn't explicitly ruled out working for him in the future. He's a fascist, and he inspired an insurrection. But I'd work for him again. Kind of funny. Anyway, do we want to look up Voice of America? This is the rest of these guys. Do we want to look up Voice of America and Volunteers of America? We can. That's the VOA. All right, here's the Wikipedia site for Voice of America. Just briefly, Voice of America is an international broadcasting state media network funded by the United States of America. It is the largest and oldest in the U.S. of the U.S. international broadcasters. VOA produces digital TV and radio content in 48 languages, and it distributes to affiliate stations around the world. Its targeted and primary audience is non-American outside of the U.S. borders. As of November 2022, its reporting reached 326 million. So it essentially it's a whether we like it or not, it's a propaganda producing state-run network in the same way that Russian television and Russian media is state-run propaganda machine. VOA was established in 1942, and the VOA charter was signed in law in 1976. By once again bobblehead U.S. President Gerald Ford. It is headquartered in Washington D.C. and overseen by the U.S. Agency for Global Media, an independent agency of the United States. You can read the rest on your own. Find that. Let's get to Volunteers of America. Volunteers of America. All right. And it even mentions Jefferson Airplane song as I suggested. Volunteers of America, VOA, is a nonprofit organization founded in 1896, so considerably earlier than the other VOA, that provides affordable housing and other assistance services primarily to low-income people throughout the United States. Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. The organization includes 32 affiliates and serves approximately 1.5 million people each year in 46 states. So, like the project of Volunteers of America is much less a propaganda machine and more in keeping with the social programs that were initiated by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and in some way, persisted in the administration of, perhaps the last, decent, I'm not going to say that, but, I'm certainly, Barack Obama was a decent man, and he was really very good at whatever one thinks about his policy decisions and handling of the economy. He was very good at public image, and he was very polite, and he was very sincere. But I'm thinking of Jimmy Carter, because a lot of his programs assisted those individuals in need and provided affordable housing, and he continued to work with those who were in need of affordable housing and the homeless. Even after leaving office, right? And anyway, so this is you can do that research if you want and follow that up with Volunteers of America and their social programs, and how that's very much like the opposite of being a fascist, right? This is Volunteers of America. Man dressed as Santa Claus, fundraising for Volunteers of America, Chicago, 1902. Not real popular stuff anymore, but exactly the stuff that America really needs. If you really wanted to make America great again in a non-ironic, non-sarcastic sense, you get these guys out there working as Santa Claus for Volunteers of America once again. Anyway, that's that reference. And then Lügenpresse, should we look that up too and provide Tucker Carlson with that information and how he's basically part of the new Lügenpresse? The lying press. All right, so that's the reference in the Lügenpresse. Lügenpresse, lying press, is a pejorative and disparaging political term, like fake news, used largely for the printed press and the mass media at large. And just quickly read the statement on the Lügenpresse. The term Lügenpresse has been used intermittently since the 19th century. Oh, okay, so it actually precedes the Nazis in political polemics in Germany by a wide range of groups and movements in a variety of debates and conflicts. Isolated uses can be traced back as far as the... See, and then this is an example of my dyslexia. This is a new word for me, and I don't speak German, and so it's very hard for me to process it. Vormaz, period. You can click on that if you like. You can just go to Lying Press and Wikipedia. The term gained traction in the March 1848 revolution when Catholic circles employed it to attack the rising hostile liberal press. It's always used against the liberal press in the Franco-German War. So it's actually older than the Nazis. But, no, we're not wrong about the Nazis. The Nazis adopted the term for their propaganda against the Jewish community and later the foreign press. So first it was used against the German Jews in Nazi Germany. In 1922, Adolf Hitler used the accusation of the lying press for the Marxist press as well. So like once you're done attacking like the enemy from within, right? Then you move on to the the other enemies from within, I guess. So the enemy from within can be defined not only in racial and cultural terms, but in political terms as well. Where are we? Lying press for the Marxist press. In the Mein Kampf chapter on war propaganda, he described what he saw as the extraordinary effect of enemy propaganda in the First World War. He criticized German propaganda as ineffective. It's like Trump praising Hitler because his generals were lawyer. Like our system is ineffective. We need to go back to what Hitler did. He was very effective and created a good propaganda machine. He criticized German propaganda as ineffective and called for better propaganda. Apparently we have now, because like the propaganda allows you to utilize newspeak and sort of like backwards thinking to censor political satire that critiques, right, conspiracy theory and stochastic violence, and to claim that you're censoring it in the name of preserving the peace because of its promulgation of conspiracy theory, right? So criticize German propaganda as ineffective and call for better propaganda, which allegedly, like that of the English, French, or the Americans, was to be oriented towards psychological effectiveness. Wow, it's pretty scary. Accusations of lying against domestic journalism can be found in his speeches, for example, against the Social Democratic press, the Jewish liberals, etc., etc., etc. So that's all there, and these are the origins of like this term fake news, right here, right, and they precede, I guess, the Nazis, but the Nazis were perhaps like the best at deploying like this term against any example of press, right, that criticized or deposed or accused, right, them of precisely those things that they were doing that they wished not to be accused of. So I think that's probably enough on that, at least for now. I'll go back to the image and see if there's anything else that we really haven't addressed. I don't believe that there is. This is just, once again, I don't know what you would call this in terms of a syntagm, kind of a context, setting up the context in which Trump's scramble, like immediately prior to the events of the insurrection of January 6th, like suggest, right, that he is preparing it, planning it, instigating the preparation by means of establishing a cabinet loyal to him that will follow out his instructions to persecute his enemies, protect him against accusation and harm, right? And basically promote like the lies and deception that he wishes to promote in relationship to these false claims that he actually won the election. So this is like the function of that slide. The placement of that little triangle isn't supposed to make him look already more ridiculously stupid than he is. I have no control over that. Well, I can click on it, and I can move it perhaps. All right, so I'm not going to get into it today, but just to prepare you, this is the next image. We do recognize him. I'll fade out the sound. There we go. All right, so that's what's coming up.